MLB The Show is about to shift the captain meta in the game right at the very end. Is this a good idea? Probably not. We're not here to talk about that. What we're here to talk about is, does that bode well for this weird captain meta that they've been pushing? And ultimately, is it going to make theme teams at the end of the year a little bit more enjoyable than they were probably last year? Let's dive in and let's sort of see what we can find out, looking and comparing it to the only captain card that we have right now that is 99, the Freddie Freeman card. So jumping in, if you don't know what's sort of going on here, right below me, you see on the 22nd of November, it says Team Captains 99 Diamonds, meaning it seems like that the finest cards are also going to be captains, similar to how Freddie Freeman was. Now, let's start off with what this new team captain, what this is really going to look like. Okay, so let's start off there and kind of show you what this shift did. Now, really, is it groundbreaking at this point? Truth be told, not really, I guess, per se, necessarily. But let's take a gander. Let me see if we can find Fredward here. There he is. There's Fredward. So looking at him, first off, the first change here is the captain stats. Most of the time, captain cards are around, 85 or so. Even the best captain cards are about 95. So this is 4 points overall better, right? So it's going to have 99 stats, legitimate 99 stats, and add a little bit of thing. So mind you, this card's not going to necessarily have to be hidden, kind of like how, Carlos Santana was to a certain degree, how some other captains are if you're using the theme team that they captain, right? So if you sort of go down this way, let's take a look at his captain stats. Now, again, let's just use this as a benchmark. At tier 3, which is probably where we would use them, ultimately, you're gonna if they're similar to this, and this is just a benchmark, plus 10 contact, plus 10 power to one side, hey, that seems pretty good. Now, granted, it might kind of go off of what his attributes are. So for him, plus 10 power, max out his power, plus 10 contact will max out his contact. So sort of keeping that one in mind, that like when you're sort of like, it doesn't really touch his contact versus right, but power versus left, his power versus left is now, it doesn't hit any of his stats that I look at it. It's 10 power versus 10 left, and those are the 125s. Okay. But 10 batting clutch also doesn't help him. So he's not really boosted himself, but let's just say this is sort of the base mark. It's plus 5, plus 8, plus 10 as you go along. Now, compare that to, let's just use the Dodgers because we have them pulled up here. Let's compare that to their captain card that came out the first of the year. Boobity, 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 boo. Where is it? Jock. Let's compare it to Jock. Jock at the same time. Now, granted, it was higher because, this is live series, right? Most of the time at this point, this was mainly live series. So plus 15 to right-handed clutch and then Ks. So you start looking at that. It does help him a little bit. He does get his boost for it. But again, this was for mainly live series cards at the beginning of the year. Now you use it and you're sort of like, golly gee willikers. Not really, not really a whole bunch of points. At this point, we're using, yes, I don't have Ohtani. You don't have to comment it. But you get what we're going with here. That realistically, you're going, that boost now with it is a little bit different. Now, realistically, the Dodgers are in a funky spot where if SDS is smart, they would try to give it to a pitcher, but more than likely, I don't even know what their free one would be. Is it going to be Ohtani? Is it going to be Betts? It might be Ohtani, even though they kind of gave him a finest card with his 50-50 club card, and I don't think there's going to be a better Ohtani card this year, personally. Like, what else do you give this card? Do you give him a little bit more contact? Sure. But more than likely, let's say it's Betts or Hernandez who gets it. That might be a little bit of a waste because most of the cards you probably are going to run might be the postseason cards on the offensive side. If it was a pitcher, it'd be a little bit different. But let's just sort of say hypothetical that in a couple weeks it's finest Mookie Betts or something. Does it rival this? I don't know. Season 4 is a free-for-all. So at this point, it's going to get funky. Now, ultimately, the more interesting portion is going to be really, how is it going to work for teams that were lesser? So let's take a look at the Nationals. And I'm using the Nationals as this example because I think this is one of those cards where, do I not have them? I should have. Where are they? Flashbacks. 87. Where do I not have your captain card? Oh, there he is. No, I do. So let's take a look at Adam Dunn. Adam Dunn had pretty decent stats to begin with. I used him in the beginning of the year. His captain boots is again plus 15. So are we kind of, but again, this was live series for the most part. We didn't necessarily have 99s at this point. The Nationals had one of the worst teams. Their collection wasn't really the greatest, but this is what you're sort of looking at, right? The plus 15. So are you going to see plus 10s? And again, are they going to pick the weaker side? Like the weak pitching was kind of weaker. They can give them a little bit better of a thing. And to be fair, let's take a look at live series. I don't even necessarily know who they're, let's just say it's really, I would say CJ Abrams would be their finest card, but he kind of, had a gambling issue. But let's say it's him. They replaced Adam Dunn with him for this one, and he's a little bit better. Now, is this going to shift the meta to a certain degree? Well, it's going to open up things a little bit more. Let me sort of explain here. What it's going to do is it's going to open up all these cards that we've already had, because this is really where theme teams are going to be built from, for the most part. You're not going to be necessarily using lower end cards. You're going to be using 99 Dylan Cruz, 99 Max Scherzer, 99 Anthony I hate the game baseball Rendon kind of thing. But look, the teams that this is really going to help is teams that play a little bit deeper for the most part, like your Mets, not your Marlins, but like your playoff teams, right? Teams that are very deep. This is definitely going to help, at least to a certain degree. Mind you, you're probably going to get, if it's not a finest Chris Sale, I think we're doing the game wrong. Now, ultimately, kind of like I was saying, we're sort of bouncing around here and talking about, is this going to change the meta in any fashion? The short answer is probably not to the degree we kind of think it is. The only difference is, and as I was sort of saying this entire time, is you're looking at 87s now getting boosted, or even 95s. Okay, let's take a look at the 95 captains, because that might be a better indication of where we're going. So let's just go to everyone's favorite. It's my personal favorite. It's probably your personal favorite, Carlos Santana, who was a 95. So the 95 Santana, he got nerfed to plus 10, plus 8 for switch hitters. Now, this might be a little bit of an extreme case, because people on the internet were whining that he was too broken. I didn't think he was broken. I thought it was fine. I thought nerfing him was very dumb. I still think it was a very dumb decision. But nevertheless, this is a 95 card. He doesn't necessarily need the boost, but I think you are probably going to see plus 10 to every team. Yeah, I think it's just going to depend on the luck of the draw here, which is, I don't necessarily want to say unfortunate, but I think it could end up backfiring to a certain degree. So let's say, and there's going to be pack cards. So is every finest card going to be a captain included? I don't know, but let's just say hypothetically, the free finest card is going to be a finest Jose Ramirez, right? It's a finest Jose Ramirez. He's plus 10, which would replace the Guardians captain, the 87 captain, who was Francisco Lindor, who gave you plus 15. Again, stats weren't all that great, but again, if they say, hey, let's replace Lindor with him, it's all fine and dandy. Now, what if it's, Carlos Carrasco got a 99? It would make sense to sort of replace him. He got he was a Guardian again. It might make sense to replace him. There's a lot of sort of weird oddity questions, and you kind of got these already. Flipping over here, we're bouncing around a lot because I'm trying to make my point here. Bouncing around to the Reds, for instance, this was one. So the Reds got this 99 Eugenio Suarez card, and which means it replaced the Eugenio Suarez captain card. So now you had to play with one less captain. Sonny Gray did give a little bit of give fishing contact, but they were supposed to work in tandem. So realistically, this works for something like this scenario where the captain card kind of got replaced mid-season before this kind of hey, we're going to rework the meta sort of weird thing. Now, that situation's probably going to be alleviated, because if it is finest cards, unless it's a finest Hunter Green, now mind you, Hunter Green probably will get a finest, but let's say it's finest Elly De La Cruz, or finest TJ Friedel. It very well could be. Then that fixes that weird quandary that they already had. Now, again, they could easily be like, screw it, it's going to be finest Hunter Green. He was the best player on the Reds. That would kind of suck, because it doesn't alleviate that weird problem that Reds have. So we'll sort of look and see how things kind of go a little bit later. I couldn't tell you which way direction the wind's going to blow on some of these cards. Shoto Amaga would be a good one. Like I said, I'll look more into it. We'll make a video later on, probably this week because it's kind of low, about early predictions for finest, because we don't necessarily know yet, and we're kind of in a bit of a lull. It makes sense. The World Series just ended. The only real new content we have is that Verlander card. There is a new Conquest coming. What do I expect to be in it? I don't know. Not really necessarily a whole heck of a lot, but there's some stuff on the horizon. But again, the biggest thing to take away is this is going to shift the meta. It might to a lesser degree, but again, it is just captain cards. And like I said, if they're all going to be that kind of similar, plus going from plus 15 to plus 10 because the stats are higher and it's a little bit more open, it might work a little bit better because you're not having to hide like an 87 in your lineup for finest content. Now, again, the one thing I've been saying for captain cards that I think they still should do is all these subset series that we have. So, for instance, the reason what I mean by series, like we have live series captains we're covered. We need a rookie series captain, a breakout captain, a veteran, etc., etc., etc. All-star postseason. Why? Because that's what people are going to use, right? Like, what if you just want to use an all-finest team that's not necessarily, your team? Like, you have 30 finest cards. Why not make a team out of them? There should be a finest captain that when you complete the collection or get halfway through it, boom, you got it. Now, they did something similar to it last year in 23 when they had Team Affinity captains, which I guess essentially was the overarching kind of thing, which I think worked, but didn't work because no one was doing anything last year. I didn't complete anything. I didn't get a lot of the cards in Team Affinity for the most part because it was just an awful grind. Now, if they did it this year with the grind being a little bit less bang your head against the wall and gave us a card that covered it, that'd be kind of cool. And again, I think at this point in the season, if they're already saying, screw it, they're going to be 99 team captains, we haven't seen before, which should give people an incentive to use it. Why not diversify? Say, hey, here's a finest captain. Go nuts, go wild, put your hands up in the air and sing about it or something. I think it would just be a little bit of a fun thing to acknowledge, to notice, especially at the back end where not a lot of people are even playing and may not even buy the game next year. Again, this is all just sort of speculation based on one card we saw so far. This might not even happen. It might be a plus 15, but again, sort of based on what they did and sort of where we are, it probably will be a plus 10. But again, I really hope it diversifies to a certain degree and I hope they're mainly offensive cards because if you have to have an 87 pitcher, you're only going to use one pitcher anyway in the starting rotation. So it's the pitcher and your pitcher's the lower card. Not the end of the world. Truthfully, it's the end of the world when it's, they get a pitcher. Now, if they decided, hey, we're going to release two, you're going to get one later. Who knows? That also could be fun. But we know when finest content drops, there's usually a lot of it, a lot of different cards that ultimately get used, and some cards that are good, that are fun. There'll probably be a finest program like we saw last year. They'll give that a bunch more. So there'll probably be plenty of free finest cards you're going to get along the way anyway. And of course, we know there'll be more in the collection as we go along. But again, that's not for another 11 days as we're recording this and putting this out. So there's some time. But we'll kind of see. Let me know down below. Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think this will shift the meta and want people to play at the end of the year because there'll be more fun there? Again, like I said, I'll probably start working on some more deeper content about the game and all that fun stuff. But we'll see sort of what happens. We got some time left in this game, and we'll be addressing the channel more broadly probably later this month when we sort of talk about 2024 going into 2025 and what we want to do on the channel. So that being said, leave a like if you like it, dislike if you dislike it. My name is Specs. I'll see you guys all in the next one.